WDKN.com.
I love listening to it over and over. I love it.
This is 101.5 The One and WDKN Dickson's Country Music Home.
You're listening to The Old Timers Show, presented by RFC Broadband on Dickson's only live and local station, 101.5 The One and WDKN. Now, here's your host.
Morning, Dickson County. It is Saturday, March the 26th, and you're listening to the Old Timers program here on WDKN. My name is Justin Spurlock. I'm your host, and we got a great program for you this morning. We've got a great event going on tomorrow. The Historical Society is putting on an event in Charlotte for Dr. Robert Corlew, and so I've got the current president of the Dickson Historical and Genealogical Society is here with me this morning, Larry Hillis. Larry, how are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Thank you, Justin.
Well, thank you so much for showing up this morning and coming in here to talk with me a little bit about the Corlew family because we've got a great event going on tomorrow we want to let everybody know about. But before we get to the Corlews and the event that we've got going on tomorrow, there may be some people listening that, don't really know a whole lot about you and hear the name Larry Hillis, and maybe they might have heard of you before, but maybe just give the people a little bit of background on you, who you are, and maybe kind of how you got involved with the Historical Society.
Okay, great. Well, probably the best known Hillis in Dickson County is my wife, Rayanne. She was a school teacher and taught. She was a librarian at Charlotte Junior High, later became Charlotte Middle School, and she was there from 1975 until 2005. She spent 30 years and retired. So when we go to Kroger's or we go anywhere in Charlotte, we was in CVS the other day, and she had a former student there that remembered her from the mid to late 1970s. So she can't go many places. But I came here. We married. I was at Fort Campbell. We married in 1983. We met in Clarksville and married, and then I transitioned out of the Army, and we came to Dickson. And so I've been here about 35 years. My career after the Army was working in state government in Nashville, and so I made that commute for 3 decades, and also was a very active member of the National Guard and Army Reserve for all those years, and was able to retire from the Guard in 2012 and from the state in 2013. But I became a member of the Dickson County Historical and Genealogical Society. I had been already a member of the Tennessee Historical Society and several historical museum homes around here like Carleton and Sam Davis and others. And of course, I've been a lifelong history fan and advocate of history, local history, state history, U.S. history, and became more involved in the local historical society just as a rank and file member. And we meet 6 times a year and put on a program just about every meeting, bringing somebody to talk about something historically related, and started to get involved in helping out with being a board member and subsequently becoming vice president for a couple of years. And this is the second year of my 2-year term as president. So one of the things I've tried to do in my VP years and in the 2 years I've been president is to have a special event. And tomorrow we'll be honoring someone that's well known in the folklore of Dickson County, a Charlotte native, born there. Just Thursday was his 100th anniversary of his 100th birthday. Dr. Corlew is no longer with us. He passed away in 2011, but his children are coming down, and he had a lifelong connection to Charlotte, even though he pursued his academic career at MTSU and taught there for 40 years and retired as their VP of Academic Affairs. But he had been Dean of Liberal Arts. He had been History Chair and has started teaching there in 1949. So, we'll have the family there tomorrow, and he was a member at one time of the historic Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Charlotte, and many of the older members over there remember him coming back as late as around 2000 and teaching Bible classes when he would come over for some other event and would stay in town to go to church services. And so that's sort of where I'm at. I've been a lifelong history nut, and came up in a family of great storytellers, and then history. I remember my everything was heightened for me in the early 1960s when I was in grade school, because that was centennial of the Civil War. And I remember seeing a lot of articles in papers, and of course I was still in grade school, but had some great folks around me, my grandmother and others, that would tell me stories they had heard of relatives that were living in the area and actually soldiers in the war. So, but I think tomorrow I'd invite everybody out. It's open to the public, and to come out and honor Dr. Corlew. We'll talk a little bit about history and see his family, and they'll make a few remarks, and I think it'll be a celebration, and that's what I would hope it would be seen as those that are able to attend.
Wonderful, and I'm really excited about it. The Corlew family is a family that has deep roots here in Dickson County, and we'll go ahead and take our first break here, and then we'll come back, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the Corlew family and their background, and kind of get into that. You're listening to the Old Timers program this morning. I've got the president of the Dickson County Historical and Genealogical Society, Mr. Larry Hillis, is in the studio with us this morning. We'll be right back here on the Old Timers program to talk a little bit more about the Corlew family. You're listening to WDKN.
Let's talk about your internet options in this area. Cable internet, cell phone internet, and the phone company. Does that cover it? And not everybody has all three options. So if you're looking to make a change, try RFC Broadband, a local business right here in Dickson, offering the speeds you need at prices you can afford with no data caps. 615-375-8662 or rfcbroadband.com.
You want to feel connected, at one with your world, informed, included, and inspired. So no matter where you are,
We have an accident on the expressway.
when important things happen,
You see this man, contact authorities immediately.
we're here, at all hours, in the moment, on every device in your life. Your local radio and TV broadcasters. We investigate and inform,
Our political investigation saved taxpayers.
give back to the community,
Our radio station is now accepting donations to help rebuild this community.
even save lives.
It's time to just hunker down. It's too late now to leave.
America's #1 source for news, weather, and information on your radio, TV, computer, tablet, and smartphone. We are broadcasters. Always here for you, wherever here may be. Tell Washington local stations matter by texting radio to 52886. Furnished by NAB and the station. Message and data rates may apply.
And we're back here on the Old Timers program here on WDKN. My name is Justin Spurlock. I'm your host this morning, and I've got Larry Hillis in the studio with me this morning. And we started off the show by Larry just kind of telling us a little bit about himself and how he got involved in the Historical Society. We got a big program coming up tomorrow in Charlotte that we want to invite everybody out to honor Dr. Robert Corlew Jr. And the Corlew family, as I mentioned before the break, is a family that is well known in the area, deep roots. Tell me just a little bit about the Corlew family.
Well, certainly I knew personally the man we are honoring tomorrow, Dr. Robert Ewing Corlew Jr., Ph.D., University of Alabama. He was a Charlotte grad of the class of 1940, and as of maybe 2000, 2005, he made the trip every year over at Catfish Kitchen and other places, and they would have the 1940 Charlotte High School class reunion. He was already there. I remember he taped many shows out at the Renaissance Center during the county's bicentennial in 2003. The county was formed in 1803. And he was born, honoree tomorrow, was born in Charlotte on March the 24th, 1922, and was raised there. His father, Robert E. Corlew Sr., was at the time, he passed away when Dr. Corlew was about 10. He passed away in the early 1930s and is buried over here in the cemetery right in front of Creekwood High School. And I've visited his grave with his grandson, Robert E. Corlew III. And Dr. Corlew started up at Austin P, and then, of course, that was during the Great World War II, and he enlisted in the Army Air Corps in 1943 and served for 3 years, rising to the rank of corporal, and was a radio man, communications officer, and non-commissioned officer with bombers out of the Army Air Corps out of England. And he came back and completed his degree at Austin Peay, did his master's at Vanderbilt, did a 1-year teaching at Bethel College over in McKenzie, and then got a job in 1949 at MTSU and as an instructor. And before he went there, he actually taught either a semester or a year. We may ask the family tomorrow if they remember, at Dickson High School, the Dickson Middle School now. And then he went to MTSU, taught for a few years, and was able to have some sabbatical to go down and complete his PhD in history at Tuscaloosa, the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa. Then he came back, and I met him in 1971. I graduated high school in 71, and of course, I was interested in history and political science. Those were my strong suits. And I remember him very well. He was chairman of history there at MTSU at a time. Very courtly man, always had a suit on, jacket, tie, and had a very resident Southern accent. And I came off a farm, and we didn't have quite a few folks that talked as refined as what he did. But he was a very he was a gentleman and very courtly, very courteous. And of course, he knew history back and forth, stone cold. So, he did his whole career. In fact, his son told me his father had told him that he gave his life to MTSU and went from instructor, assistant professor, the professor track, associate professor, became chairman of the department, dean of liberal arts. I had an opportunity when I came off active duty for the Army in the early 80s, I did a master's of public administration at MTSU at that time. They had a program there, and Dr. Corlew was our dean of liberal arts. And then I graduated there in 86 with an MPA, and Dr. Corlew subsequently became vice president of academic affairs and went over to the main Cope building, which is the administrative building there, as the VP of academic affairs. So, very distinguished family. His father had been involved. I think your article about a month ago, Justin, mentioned, some of the things his father had been involved with. And we're talking to Robert E. Corlew, Sr., and some of the normal schools that were here in Dickson. And then he actually went a year over to Cumberland University in Lebanon and took a law degree. And my friend, the son of our honoree tomorrow, is a lawyer, and his Dr. Corlew, the baby child, Mary Catherine, is an attorney. So they were several, and of course his mother was a leech, and they were attorneys and chancellors and held judgeships in Dickson County. So they go quite a ways back. Dr. Corlew was born in 1922. The county was formed in 1803. So, he was only about 110, 112 years after the founding of the county, he shows up. So we think of that in terms of human years, that's a long time. But in terms of history and in terms of civilizations, in terms of cultures, that's a drop in the bucket. And so we're still a very young country, a very young county in this part of the USA. So, but I think the Corlews, I believe in your article, I think some of them had served in the state legislature. They were merchants and obviously professionals dealing with education and the law. And so they are a very prominent family. I'm always amazed at Dr. Corlew. Tomorrow, his eldest son became an attorney. His second son became a doctor, medical doctor, an MD. And then his baby, Mary Catherine, his daughter, became an attorney. So there you had Dr. Corlew was able to get all three children to go through professional school. So that's an accomplishment that you don't see a lot around in families where, they're able to, the patriarch of the family is able to inspire in his children the ability to go on and get as much education as they can get. So, but they're a very prominent. And Dr. Corlew, outside of Dickson, was many years the chairman, 7 or 8 years, was chairman of the Tennessee Historical Society, probably served on that for more than a decade, and wrote some textbooks. And of course, one of the things we'll spotlight tomorrow is the history of Dickson County. He wrote that and published it around 1956, still in publication today. The Historical Society just published 150 copies. And anyone that has not read that book, I would encourage them to go to Reading Rock or to the Clement Hotel Railroad Museum and buy a copy. And it gives a very good accounting of the first 150 some odd years of Dickson County.
So the Corlew family to me is one of the integral families when you're talking about the history of Dickson County. Dr. Corlew obviously wrote the book. His father was, as you alluded to a few minutes ago, I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, probably about a month ago, that sort of detailed what his father did. His father was the superintendent of Dickson County Schools for close to 30 years, about 25 years, I think, from the early 1900s until he passed away, I think, in around 1930. And so very integral to the starting of the school system. We had schools in the 1800s, but in the early 1900s, when Bob Corlew comes along, he really is the one who sort of gets the first modern school going and the first high school here in Dickson. So from that point of view, from an educational point of view, the family is right there in the mix when things are getting started. And then Dr. Corlew, his son, goes on to write, in my opinion, probably the most important book in the history of Dickson County as far as, recording our local history. I remember when I was growing up, I had Mr. Carl Pettis was my teacher, and he taught us some different things that were kind of related to local history. We didn't get real deep into local history in class. It was a United States history class, but he would throw a few things in, and I remember him giving us a couple of lines from that book. And as I became an adult and really got interested in local history, I found that book kind of the go-to, what I constantly go back to and to look at for different information. Just talk just a little bit about that book and the importance of it.
Well, I think it is, as you alluded to, I think it is sort of the bedrock of what we have available here for early Dickson County history. And, Dickson, has grown over the years. We're 55,000 folks now, I guess, with the last census that was done in 2020. But to have a very academic book, but a readable academic book. I mean, Dr. Corlew, I think, spent several years during his graduate training putting this book together, and it's well done. He's went to original sources to document it, and of course he spent several years putting it together. And I don't know if there's an equal here. There's several journals, there's several folks of diaries and that type of thing, but Dr. Corlew did a pretty thorough academic investigation of the first 50 or so years of Dickson County history. The book is extremely readable. It has some great little tidbits about the Parker family at Parker's Crossroads. It went on out west in the 1840s and had an encounter with the Indians, and one of the ladies was captured, and then her son with an Indian became Quanah Parker, who was, after Geronimo, became the big in southwest Oklahoma, and we had some encounters maybe with the James gang, and so he had some documented things, and also some of the folklore from that time. Maybe you couldn't exactly get a piece of paper to document it, but that was passed down from generation to generation, as history was before the printing press. Is all oral, and so, that's a great place. I know, talking to Angela Redden down at Reading Rock, she has folks coming in almost a weekly basis just wanting a good, solid book on Dickson County history-wise, and that's the go-to book.
And I hope I'm not misspeaking here, but I've talked to Angela a few times. We're good friends. I'm a big reader and obviously writer and stuff like that. So spent a lot of time in the bookstore, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she told me that was the number one seller in the bookstore.
I think of that genre when everybody, because I guess it has very few competitors. If someone comes in specifically asking for a book on Dickson County, that's the go-to book, and that has been the case now for almost 60 years. That book was first published in the early 1950s, I think around 1955 or so. Mm-hmm. And so, it's been out there for 50 some odd years. And we updated Alan Reagan, their county historian, Alan Reagan. He updated it for the bicentennial, and it does have some information that goes into the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s. But it's 90% still Dr. Corlew's book. And like I say, the Historical Society, just last fall, we did 150 copies, because our two vendors that were selling, Reading Rock and the Clement Museum, they had run out. So we went ahead and, with Alan's assistance, and got that reprinted. And, those books are currently available, and hopefully when we need more books, the Historical Society will be in a financial shape to go out and print those books, because they are books that people actually ask for, according to Angela, and even the folks at Clement indicate that they're requested books when folks come in, because they've heard about them. Maybe they've moved away, maybe they've lost the book, because you can't find them on eBay, you can't find them on any Amazon or anything like that. So it's basically, we have a couple of outlets here in Dickson, and we're hoping at the Historical Society to keep it going, keep the publication, keep it in print. So future generations, future history readers like us will have something to read. And maybe hopefully in another few decades, there'll be another book out there that'll maybe take it from the mid-20th century on into the 21st. But that's a great starting point, is the Dr. Corley book, The History of Dickson County.
It is a great book. It's where I usually get the stories that I write. I usually find a tidbit in there and try to go out and research and expand on that. So without that book, I don't think I would be able to do what I do. So I appreciate the Corlew family and Dr. Corlew so much. We're getting close to the end of the show here. We're going to go ahead and take our last break. When we come back, I'd like for you to kind of take the people through the details of tomorrow's event and really promote that when we get back. We're here this morning live with Mr. Larry Hillis, who is the president of the Dickson County Historical and Genealogical Society. He's here talking all about the event that's taking place in Charlotte tomorrow for Dr. Robert E. Corlew Jr. We're going to come back and give you some more details on that. You are listening to the Old Timers program here on WDKN.
Business internet is a must. Paying bills, sending emails, updating your website, running social media campaigns, even your phone and credit card machine need reliable internet. But your options are limited, and every provider has its drawbacks. That's why RFC Broadband for Business is here. A truly local business offering wireless high-speed internet options for your business. Affordable prices, no wires, no contracts, no data caps. RFC Broadband for Business, 615-375-8662 or rfcbroadband.com. Simple billing, rural coverage, and again, no contracts or data caps. It's all designed with you in mind. See the difference a local company makes. RFC Broadband for Business, 615-375-8662 or rfcbroadband.com. Currently not available in all areas. Call for availability.
You want to feel connected, at one with your world, informed, included, and inspired. So no matter where you are,
We have an accident on the expressway.
when important things happen,
You see this man, contact authorities immediately.
we're here, at all hours, in the moment, on every device in your life. Your local radio and TV broadcasters. We investigate and inform,
Our political investigation saved taxpayers.
give back to the community,
Our radio station is now accepting donations to help rebuild this community.
even save
It is
lives.
time to just hunker down. It's too late now to leave.
America's #1 source for news, weather, and information on your radio, TV, computer, tablet, and smartphone. We are broadcasters. Always here for you, wherever here may be. Tell Washington local stations matter by texting radio to 52886. Furnished by NAB and the station. Message and data rates may apply.
And we're back here to wrap up the Old Timers program. I've got Larry Hillis here with me, the president of the Dickson County Historical and Genealogical Society. And we're here talking about Dr. Robert Corlew this morning. We've got a great event out in Charlotte tomorrow. Larry, could you give the people the details on tomorrow's event?
Sure. Tomorrow, March the 27th, on the square there in Charlotte, Tennessee, at the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, where Dr. Corlew had been a member in his early life and had come back even in his later years and had taught Bible studies. We'll start at 2 p.m. It's a free, open to the public. Anybody can come. We'll have a program and basically talking about the Corlew family genealogy, which Justin carried that, and Alan Reagan, our county historian, will talk about the book, the seminal book that Dr. Corlew wrote back in the 1950s. I have the honor of honoring his family by presenting 3 World War II service medals for them to note that their father was a veteran and a World War II veteran. And Dr. Neil Spence, who will be with us, he's the current pastor out at the Redeemer Presbyterian Church. He will have a spiritual message for us, and Bob Corlew, Dr. Robert Corlew's son, will have Corlew family remarks, and then everybody's got a phone now on their phones, so with a camera, so we'll take some photos, and then we have a celebration cake that we'll cut back in the Bible study room. And we're hoping to have all this done within about 50 minutes. So if you show up about 2, we'll hopefully get you back on the road by 3 o'clock. And hopefully it'll be nice weather. I think a little cool in the morning, but I'm sure by 2 o'clock it'll be very permittable. And both doors will be open. You can come in the front of the church. You can come in the back of the church. And I'll be there from about 1:30 on. So there'll be folks there. The church will be open. And we invite everybody to come out and celebrate this life and achievements of this remarkable native of Charlotte, Dr. Robert E. Corlew, Jr.
I can't wait. It's exciting. I'll be there tomorrow. Like you said, I'll be doing a reading. So come on out and see me, see Larry. Jessica Hollingsworth will be there as well. All the members of the Historical Society will most likely be there. So come on out. It's a historic church. So if nothing else, just come on out, hear some good speakers, check out a historic church. And as we lay tribute to a guy who's done a lot for Dickson County, Dr. Robert E. Corlew, Jr., the author of the book History of Dickson County. So we're really excited about that. It starts at 2 o'clock, is that right?
Yes, sir.
2 o'clock out in Charlotte tomorrow, so everybody come on out there and join us. Thank you so much, Larry, for being on the show with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and close things out now. We've got Dale Reagan's show coming up next, so stay tuned. Weekends on the Highland Rim. And then in 30 minutes, I've got another member of the Historical Society, Jessica Hollingsworth, is going to come in. We're going to talk about some more Historical Society events and some chamber things as well. So stay tuned, and thank you for listening to WDKN.
In times of joy,